All right, what's up, GJ? You are my
Oh,
grandma, but I'm going to give you a little introduction. You
okay.
are a mother, a sister, a learner, a traveler, and a lover of life, I think. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's a
that's a
good
good
introduction.
description. And
Yeah.
it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, even though we're not in person, but I'm sure we'll see each other soon. Um, so I guess just to get into who you are a little bit, I think it's a good introduction to just talk about all your travel experiences that you have and just a little bit about like how traveling has like been a part of your life ever since my mom was your child and like you were you were developing her as your kid, but you were still incorporating travel into your life. So if
Yeah,
you want to talk about that a little.
sure. Well, my very first travel experience was when I was 9, and our family joined my dad in Busan, Korea after the Second World War. So I lived there for a year, and that was my first experience. And then for your mom, um, your granddad Larry and I joined the Peace Corps in 1970. We took your mother and her sister Heather to Accra, Ghana, where we lived for 2 years.
Mhm.
So that just gave me such excitement. I mean, it was just meeting people and seeing their culture and how did it intertwine with mine. And then that just started my traveling all over the world. So I've been to Central and South America, lots of countries in Southeast Asia, Europe, of course,
Mhm.
and so it's been great.
Do you think your travel, like your love for traveling came from uh just doing it, or was it from like being like into learning and like reading in general about like other places before you went, or is it more so just whatever place seemed like cool, if that makes sense?
Well, maybe a combination. I mean, I always had been fascinated by Africa and West Africa in particular, and so it seemed like a natural. For 2 years, Peace Corps took families, and so we applied and we were approved. And going there, I mean, we both had jobs. Larry, that was my late husband, and I both had jobs while we were there. The girls went to school and preschool, and so we became kind of a part of the community, although always outside the community. I mean, we were white. Um, as you know, like you, your mom and aunt are very fair, so everybody always wanted to touch them and play with them. So that was kind of our entree. People loved seeing them, and we had really a good experience. I think it made our family closer, really,
Yeah.
because there wasn't a TV or telephone, and people had to make do with family,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
As
So
far as your health, I think you're probably one of the good examples of people who are older and still able to like function at a good level because you could still go on walks with your dog
yeah,
and be able to still be functionable as far as like going on your phone and texting me and FaceTiming me and being able to get on this call. So I think how are you able to do that at an age that people would probably sometimes say that they're just declining, but you just keep seeming to be able to keep going and just still have like this energy to keep learning more. So how are you able to do that?
yeah. Well, I first of all, I'll just tell the audience I'm 83,
Mhm.
and I'm in good health. I have arthritis. That's about it. I don't have to take any medications or anything. And I think it's just that I'm a pretty positive person. I'm an optimist. And then something that I think was truly significant was about 15 years ago, I started a daily practice of gratitude. And lo and behold, it made me like happier. Um, just to be every day, from the moment I wake up. When I first wake up, I look out my bedroom doors, and there's, nature and the sky and hummingbirds, and I don't know, it just feels wonderful. I love where I live. I love my house. And like you said, um, I do keep learning. I'm an avid reader, so I'm usually reading 2 or 3 books at a time. I just finished yesterday a book on the building of the Panama Canal, and it was recommended by my brother. So I take recommendations from friends and families. I've read books that you've recommended, and when books are assigned in college, novels in particular, to any of my grandchildren, I usually read those just so I can be current with what all of you are doing. And I don't want to be left behind. I mean, that's why, hey, if I'm going to be in touch with you guys, I've got a text, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned how to do that. And then I happen to have many computer savvy and tech savvy people in the family that will help me out. Like yesterday, I got a message in Spanish from the woman that cleans my home, and I didn't know how to do the translation. I know some Spanish, but not all the words. So when I saw one of my grandsons last night, he showed me. I just tap on the text, and there down below it can say translate. I pushed that and it told me everything. So that was something I learned yesterday. So I still like to learn and
I
be
think
up to
that's
date.
I think that's really cool because I've been hearing so many people say that like once you graduate college, it's the time when you start to learn the most because you can start to kind of go into interests that are the most interesting to you versus being told what you're going to do as far as learning. But I think it's interesting that for your like routines as far as like doing like a gratitude practice, and I know you have a pretty regimented like sleep routine. I think
I
it's
do.
interesting because it seems like there was not always a need for as much of, I mean, there's always a need for routine, but I think now more than ever with like technology, it's easy to get distracted. And if you're not
Yeah.
following a set routine as far as like getting up and going for a walk or like scheduling meals, it's easy to get thrown off. So
Yeah.
how are you able to do that? And like what are some of the routines that have enabled you to be healthy at 83 years old?
Yeah. Well, I think getting restorative sleep is probably
Mm,
the most important. And I was actually, that was confirmed by a neurologist that I saw when I had some neuralgia, which is a nerve issue that was causing pain. And she asked me, she said, could I ask you some more personal questions? You're the only patient I have in their 80s that doesn't take any prescription medication. So, I mean, of course, part of it is my good genetics. I mean, that's a lot of it. But I think a lot of it too is that I am a pretty disciplined person. So I do get 8 hours of sleep every night. I have ever since I remember. And I don't do well when I don't get it. I get irritable and low energy. And that is a very bad combination. No one would want to be around me. And and then I always eat 3 meals a day. And that's just a routine I'm in, a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And fortunately, now that I am widowed, I have a friend who lives 2 doors down, and we have dinner together. She's also widowed. We share dinner 3 or 4 nights a week, and that's very nice because when I know she's coming for dinner, I make sure that I have a nice dinner to present and something attractive instead of just snacking and then not feeling like I really had a meal,
yeah.
So I do have regular meals, and I would say very my like I don't have sugar very often. I rarely have caffeine. I found both those aggravate my arthritis. And so I eat a lot of vegetables. I use olive oil, scant amount of butter. Um, and I do eat meat and I eat fish. I eat all kinds of meat. But I don't eat huge quantities.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like my eating.
Mhm.
I don't have any of my dangerous foods here in the house, like
Yeah.
ice cream. That's my go-to for comfort food
Yeah.
or celebration, anything good or bad, I would go for ice cream. So I don't keep it here.
I,
And
yeah, I think part of the whole eating healthy thing is what I've always kind of innately known just from like eating dinners with you when I would visit is that if you structure a dinner where it's like you took like 30 minutes to an hour and you're preparing for other people and you're sitting down together, it's
mhm,
like such a good um thing as far as like for just like mental health, but then also just like to like mindfully eat because if you're just eating like by yourself, like on your phone, um, it's so much easier to just like eat junk food or just like go out to eat and then you're just like staring at your phone while you're eating. But I think for me, like if I'm able to just make a meal, I'm never gonna like eat too much really. Like I'm just gonna eat. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you're eating with a bunch of people, you're just
right.
enjoying it versus
Well,
like,
there's the conversation and the conviviality. And
yeah. And I
also, if
think
I'm
I was
cooking
gonna
like
say
with
like,
you or someone else in the here, it's something we do together. And then
yeah.
I put a lot of love into it because I know I'm feeding people that I love.
Mhm.
And, you know,
And I
so
think it's fun too, because like we'll be in the kitchen together and just like, oh, like what spice should I do? Or just even like if we're having coffee, like just doing it together, definitely makes it better. So it's fun to like do like healthy stuff like with other people, I think for
it
me.
is.
Yeah.
And we can congratulate each other on how good we're being.
Yeah. Well, I don't even consider it like good anymore because I know like if I eat healthy, I'm gonna feel better. So it's
Yeah,
like just
definitely.
showing up for like my best self.
Something too that I was able to do with diet, well, it was a combination diet and exercise. About 5 years ago, well, I've always had relatively high cholesterol,
Hmm.
um, but I was able to reduce it to a within normal range by a combination. I lost about 20 pounds. And I did that not on a diet, just cutting out certain things. I mean, I wasn't counting calories or anything, and then also by upping my exercise. So I do walk from 1 to 2 hours every day, and I take my dog, sometimes with a friend, mostly by myself. Um, well, I'd say half and half probably. And I enjoy being out in nature, and that's part of the gratitude. Where I live here in California in the Bay Area, there are so many wonderful places to walk within 20 minutes, and places that are safe and safe for my dog. And I usually always talk to people when I'm on my walk.
Yeah.
I'm pretty gregarious, pretty social. If they don't answer, I just go on, but I like you. Sometimes you meet some really interesting people, have a nice exchange. Everybody's smiling.
Yeah,
People
definitely.
smile more when they're outside.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, as far as during the COVID pandemic, I think you said that you made some like pacts. I don't remember exactly the details, but it was something along the lines of like keeping up with the three meals, or it might have been after my grandfather passed away, but you wanted to like make sure you said hi to like one person every day.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that just shows like the ability to be flexible and adaptable. So how did you come up with that? Was it from a place of just feeling bad and then knowing that you would feel better if you did it, or just knowing that like life's gonna go on, or I don't know, what was it that made you want to like make those steps to make sure that you're doing something every day that's like beneficial?
Yeah. Well, it did come from grief
Yeah.
after your grandfather died. And I just knew that I wanted to have, well, initially, I just knew that I wanted to stay alive and to be my regular self. So I did make some rules for myself that I was to get up every morning, take a shower, get dressed, put on some makeup, and go outside. And I did that initially. That took much of my energy because grief, it just pulls energy. I mean, it's and then I started like just liking that routine. And I did find also that mornings were the most difficult because I would wake up early and I would realize he wasn't there. And then my very loving sister um, said, well, she would call me every morning at 7 o'clock so I wouldn't feel alone. And for 5 years, she called me every day, which is such an expression of caring and loving about another person. And so now we don't talk as often, but we still talk 2 or 3 times a week, which is great. And when COVID came, I realized, the first day of our lockdown here in California, your Aunt Heather brought over some food for me and put it on the porch and then ran off. And I was thinking, oh no, I can't even touch or hug my child because everyone was concerned because of my age.
Yeah.
And they were working or going to school. They didn't want me to get COVID from them. So I talked to your mom about making a space that would be safe that I could entertain. And so she came up with this great idea of my garage. So I hired someone to come. We painted really colorful cupboards and walls. I bought curtains and a big shower curtains that were printed fabric to cover the washer dryer. I got little blankets because it was chilly at night here. And then we ate there. So I would be in one corner, and then I had a card table set up for family or friends here at the other end. I had a little heater that really didn't do any good, but it was an idea anyway.
Yeah.
I bought those pretty lights, that you hang up. And we had holiday meals. We even played some of our after dinner games, that we like to do. I would sit in the corner and then, I could still participate with my cards or whatever.
Mhm.
So, I try to be adaptable, and that if something comes up that is either something that happens to me health wise, or there's a pandemic or something else, that there's a workaround to try to make it so I could still have. Oh, and what I also did was I had already purchased this metal was like a corral for my dog, which I didn't need anymore, but I spread it across the big garage door. Then I could open the door and we could have our dogs there too. So people would drive by, they'd look in like, what? We'd
Yeah.
wave. And like for one Thanksgiving, it was so cold that my son-in-law's mother was visiting, and she was there in like a stocking cap and 2 coats, because it was so chilly, but we could be together, you
That's
know.
good.
So
Yeah, I think that
I
speaks
think
to,
relationships are the key.
yeah,
People that
for
I
sure.
love and that I know love me, and yeah, having a human connection.
Yeah. You mentioned that after you were widowed, you had a tough time getting out of bed, but I was wondering if that's still the case. Because even for me, when like I'm having a good day, it's almost, or like I'm like in a good rhythm, it's still like in the morning, I just get so like, I don't know, like I'll be laying in bed and I'm just like, I don't want to get up. And I don't know if that's the same for you or if you just roll out of bed quickly.
Yeah, I get up quickly,
Really?
but I also fall asleep almost the minute
Yeah.
I get in bed. And then too, I have a dog.
I guess
And so
that's
he
part of it.
knows the routine. So at about 6:30, and he does sleep in the bed with me, he kind of starts stirring as I stir.
Mhm.
And then he comes over and he's looking at me, and I go, oh, yeah, you want
Yeah.
to eat. And he like dives out of the bed.
I guess a dog's a good excuse to like get up out of bed and like get
Yeah.
outside for sure.
Yeah.
Um, if you had to recommend like a few places that you would recommend visiting for someone that's like untraveled or hasn't gone to like many places, what are some of your favorites that you've been to?
Okay. Well, I think Paris is an incredible place for any age person.
Okay.
It's so interesting, so beautiful. And I found the French people, I do not speak French, but I found people very welcoming to me. And, you know, eating one day at a little cafe, the waiter told us he was so sad because his partner had died. I mean, you can make a connection even just getting a coffee and croissant, you know. So so I think probably like anywhere in Italy, anywhere in France. And your grandfather and I used to do house exchanges a lot. So over the years, we did about 14 where you would go and stay in someone's home and they would stay in ours. And I mean, you can't do that yet, but you could later.
Yeah.
And that was a good way to get connected to people. So okay, so Italy or France for me are wonderful. And then, you know, you have a lot of heritage from the British Isles. You know, your grandfather's family was from Scotland. My grandfather's parents were from Ireland. So those are interesting places with a lot of history.
Mhm.
But then, really, for just some incredible fun, is Southeast Asia.
I knew you were going to say
Yeah, I love,
that.
I've been to Vietnam 3 times.
Yeah.
I love it there. And I've been to Thailand and then China. Well, I've been all over.
Yeah.
I also love my trip to India. It was a harder trip in terms of um,
Logistics.
the kind of poverty that I saw. I think I told you I kind of had to make like a light protect me around me so I wouldn't feel heartbroken at some of the children, you know.
Mhm.
But the people are beautiful and I love the food, I love the music.
Mhm.
So I mean, I've never taken a trip. The trip that I enjoyed the least was Iceland. And I think I felt very disconnected from the people and it's a very barren where we were anyway. I know there are other people that have loved their trips to Iceland, but that was just my experience. So I like to travel independently. I
Mhm.
don't like to really be in a group.
Yeah.
And then just this May, I took for the first time a trip by myself to Panama all alone, just rented ahead of time. I had booked hotels and one in Panama City, one in the rainforest. I met so many people and it was wonderful. And and, you know, as the plane was landing, I thought, what have you done? What if you don't get to talk to anybody? What if you feel alone or lonely, you know? And
Yeah.
from the minute I got to the hotel, they saw I was old and they wanted to make sure that I could get to my room and down, you know, without an elevator or anything. They said, if you need help, just call the front desk. We'll send someone to hold your arm while you walk down the steps. I mean, so kind.
Mhm.
And
I think traveling alone is honestly one of the most weird experiences because it's always like when you're younger, you're traveling like if you ever travel, you're always traveling with people you know, like your family and friends. So because of that, you always have like someone to fall back on, if that makes
that's
sense.
right.
Whereas when you're by yourself, you're just like, oh, like I'm really alone. And then like if I don't make any conversation, I'm actually like lonely. But you just have to like go out and just talk to people, which is hard because if you're in a foreign location, sometimes they don't speak the language or they're just not like you may come across as just like arrogant or something just because of the way like the culture is or just like what you're wearing or something. But I think just going in with that optimistic mindset and being open to travel alone is definitely beneficial, would you say?
Yeah, well, I also on that trip to Panama, I was introduced to a woman in Panama by a Panamanian man here in Oakland. And he called her, they were very fearful that I was elderly and traveling alone and I was a woman. Now,
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about my safety, but they said, oh, you know, so the woman there did insist that I use her chauffeur. She said, I'm going to give you my chauffeur for the week. And so I did have a driver. I
Mhm.
mean, that does make it easier getting around.
Yeah.
Um, and he didn't speak English, but we figured it all out. I speak a little Spanish, he spoke a little English. And so, really, the language didn't become a problem because in hotels and restaurants, well, in tourist areas, most people
Yeah.
did speak English. And then the thing that was so cool when I went to the rainforest, it was a place that they had an infirmary for baby sloth who had fallen out of the trees, and they were caring for them so they would be able to be released back into the rainforest. And I had had no idea that was going to be at my resort, that I would get to be up close. Because when I
Yeah.
had traveled in Costa Rica, they were so high up in the trees, they would say it was a baby sloth. You would get your monocular or your binoculars out, and yeah, probably it was, but to be close. So
Mm,
I like the adventure of it being unexpected, the
mm.
unexpected things. I'm sure you found that when you travel.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be stuff that's throwing you off.
Yeah.
If you had, like, what are like some of the essentials you bring with you when you travel? Because you like to travel light. So
I
what are
travel light for
essentials?
sure, for sure. So another thing I do is I do not check my bag. I travel with a bag that will hold enough for. I've never traveled like if I'm going to a place where I'm going to be a few days. I don't worry. I just do my laundry. So anyway, I travel light. So let me see some of the things I always take. I always take a flashlight. I always make sure, of course, that I have left my itinerary with my family so they could reach me.
Mhm.
I always buy the worldwide travel for my phone. So it's $10 a day so that I can text, email, send pictures. So I always take my good phone. I take good walking shoes always. I always, in case something should happen and I got separated from my suitcase, like the last time when I came out to Connecticut, by the time I got on, there was no space in the overhead. So they had to take my bag.
Mm.
I always carry a change of clothes in my, either if I I either wear a backpack or I carry a pretty sizable carry-on with my purse, a little purse stuffed in it. I always carry my money and everything in a very small crossbody bag that I wear under a jacket or under a shirt so that people don't see the strap in the back. It would be more difficult to take it.
Mm.
And I always take some kind of either like I'm going to Berlin. I have a little daily Berlin thing that tells fun things to do. I always carry something, even though you can get all of your info on your phone. I always carry something in paper, and I carry my itinerary of my flights and everything in paper also,
Mm.
in case something happened. I always also lock my suitcase. I have one of those, even though I'm carrying it. And always take a sweater or a wrap no matter where you go, even if they say the weather's going to be hot.
Okay.
And an umbrella. I always bring an umbrella.
You're so prepared, even with the small bag. My next question is, how does it feel to like grow up and then watch your own children have their own children? Like how does that, I don't know
Oh,
how
it,
does
it,
that
it
feel?
it's so many things. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It fills my heart up. I mean, like I took care of you for a short time after you were first born and your mom went back to work.
Mm.
And I mean, those are such vivid memories to me of how you had this little pompadour hair, the way it grew, and you would always spin your hands like this in excitement. And so then to see you as a man, and I see some of your grandfather in you, of course, your mom and dad and all. And I'm just so proud of you. I feel pride and that feeling of that some of my wisdom, some of my genetic makeup is following just another generation besides my children,
Yeah.
and so it's just love of a different kind. There's just no relationship the same as a grandparent grandchild relationship, because it's like, I don't judge you. I'm not trying to make you follow any rules. It's just pretty unconditional, really,
Yeah.
my love.
And
And
part of it, I think for me was that I wasn't always like close to you. So it made it like even more special when I would see you. Because like we would have to make the trip all the way across the country from Connecticut to California. So I think that adds to it. But
yeah,
obviously, like everyone, um, generally if they're on good terms and then it's unconditional love.
right. Well,
Yeah.
I think too, your parents, your aunts, and her husband, and my husband and I wanted very much for the cousins to continue to know each other and to be close, and so we made frequent trips. I mean, and we were able to do that,
Hmm.
that was wonderful. Your grandfather and I had both retired just before or right after you were born. And then you had, your cousin Ruby, she was born just 8 or 9 months after you. So, and everybody at that time was living in Oakland. So it was wonderful. We were just close, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been it's just like you see, as the world has changed, how your world is so much more complex and fraught with difficulties than my world was
Hmm.
as a young person.
That's one thing I was gonna ask you is from like as you grew up to now, do you find it like there's uh less like community kind of because there's more ability to just be like separate on your phone? And do you think in the future that it can be more like open-ended, like, oh, just go play outside with everyone together? Or I don't know if you have any
Well,
ideas on that.
I think it depends. Like, I love having a phone.
Yeah,
And I love being able, like, I can text you anytime about anything,
yeah.
and I can hear from you, and we're not having to make an appointment to have a phone conversation or something like that. So, I mean, like, I do have a rule at my house, as you know, that we don't have our phones at the table. There's certain times that I like it just to be
Show me a
conversation.
picture or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not
But
texting.
I don't know. I mean, I was certainly more, I think families were more isolated when I was young. We didn't we didn't have, like, when I was really little, when I was 5 and I was living, it was during the Second World War. Our telephone was this tall thing that had a earpiece you lifted up, and it was a party line. So it meant there were 4 families on the same number. So, like, you might pick up the phone and you would hear your next door neighbor or some other person talking to someone, and then they would say, "Please hang up, I'm on the phone." And then you could say, "Well, this is an emergency," and people would hang up. But I was forbidden by my mother to pick up the phone because I was 5. I
Because you
wasn't
could
supposed to do that.
eavesdrop on other people.
But I learned this way, that if I pressed the thing down before I lifted the receiver, they didn't hear the click.
Mhm.
I never heard anything interesting, but I used to like to listen. I was always nosy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I like to travel.
That's actually a really funny story. I didn't know that was even a thing that people would like share phones pretty much. That's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
And now think what we do,
Yeah.
we have a passcode on our phone so no one else can open it.
Yeah, my mom was talking about that the other day, how when we were growing up and like had like iPods and stuff, they would
Uh-huh.
be parents who would like go through their kids like texts and stuff, but my mom never did that. But now that seems like people have so much personal uh like privacy, I think. Like even more so than even like a few years ago. Like people are more like even if I gave someone my phone, I don't ever feel like they would like want to go through it. I don't know if that.
Well, I think people are more fearful now,
Yeah.
a lot of people, because one of the differences I was going to say with when I grew up to now, when I grew up, the threat that we felt was from afar, that maybe someone was going to drop an A bomb or something. I mean, that was still frightening, but it
Yeah.
was very far away. And then we were told if we just tucked ourselves under our desks, we would be safe. I mean, we used to
Yeah.
have these drills for A bombs where you would like get on the floor under your desk at school, and that they reassured us that was going to be make us safer if there was an A bomb. Um, Also, we had the threat and fear of earthquakes where I live. You know, that never bothered me much. But now there's a lot of threat from within. You know, and I think that that is closer. You know, I think that can make a person more anxious.
Definitely could be more destructive because no one's really thinking about it as much.
Yeah.
All right. There's only 2 minutes left on the timer, so is there anything else we should talk about? Um,
Well, I think podcasts are great. I listen to all kinds. I listen to yours, and this is the first one I've ever been on, and I want to thank you for having me.
of course,
It's been fun.
I think in the future it's actually going to be interesting because we've had conversations that were, and I've had conversations with my mom, my friends, and people that were like similar to like a podcast style almost, where like you just talk about like anything that's on your mind. And before technology, I think they would have these long conversations more often. But nowadays, people can only do them on a podcast, like we have to like set aside time to do this. Whereas
Right.
like I wouldn't normally just like talk for an hour and just like cancel out my day.
Well,
So
you
I
just have to come and see me.
yeah, I know. But I think for the future, like a lot of people are gonna just keep doing podcasts. And I think like the normal person, maybe even through like a job interview or something, might be like this is my podcast, this is what I'm interested in. So I
Yeah.
think it's still like the early stages, and I think it's cool that you came on and we did it. So
Well, I think it's cool that you invited me.
yeah.
So thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
Okay. Bye
All right.
bye.